We just got done taking a look at some very graphically impressive PS2 games, and that was a lot of fun. But now we're going to get down to business and take a look at some certified classics, the absolute bangers that you need to play on PS2. Now this isn't a carefully curated top 20 list or anything like that, but instead, this is me excitedly throwing titles onto a list of games that keep me coming back to the PS2 all these years later. What that means is I highly recommend every single game that appears on today's list, but it's not comprehensive. There will be amazing games missing, but that just leaves this open to being a multi-part series. Leave me a comment below if you'd like to see a part 2 and what games you think are missing, but without further ado, let's get into the list. We're going to start things off today with what is probably my favorite video game franchise of all time, Max Payne. No. It's been a personal tradition of mine to replay the first 2 Max Payne games during the first heavy snowfall every winter, and these games have been near and dear to my heart since they came out well over 20 years ago and I was far too young to be playing them. One of my best friends and I have been quoting this game since we were kids. It's got some of the most iconic one-liners in video game history, and the gameplay has absolutely aged like fine wine. It's bullet time perfected, right in the heart of the Matrix era, and the story cuts surprisingly deep. If you haven't played these, I absolutely recommend them. I personally like the first game a little more than the second game, but they're both fantastic, and the gameplay in the second is slightly refined. Check them out, they're all-time greats. We talked about Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance in the last video as well, and that game does look fantastic, but it really is that Diablo-style, loot-based dungeon crawler gameplay placed on a console with fantastic co-op that makes it so good. And if you do like that Diablo-style game and want a fantastic console experience, the same developer released Champions of Norath and its sequel Champions Return to Arms on PS2 as well. Graphically speaking, I think they're even more impressive, and the gameplay is just smooth as butter. If you want that polished ARPG experience, be it co-op or single player, you gotta check these out, man. I don't think there's ever been a video game franchise that's had as much of an impact on the greater cultural zeitgeist of an era than Tony Hawk did in the 2000s. These games and all the media that spawned from it, like the Jackass franchise and Viva La Bam, turned an entire generation of us kids into skateboarders overnight. And while Avril Lavigne was singing about skater boys, the PS2 was pumping out 7 mainline Tony Hawk games. Can you believe how many titles we used to get in a single game franchise in a generation? Tony Hawk's Underground 1 and 2, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4, these were all fantastic, but I gotta say I think the peak of the franchise was Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. This is where they added revert in addition to manual, and those long arcadey combo chains that the franchise was so well known for was born. If you gotta pick just one, I'd go back and play 3, but honestly, you should go revisit them all, they're so fun. But maybe after all that fast-paced, arcadey action, you want to slow things down with one of the most deep, layered RPG experiences in gaming history, not just on the PS2. Well, if so, I highly recommend the Xenosaga Trilogy. This is one of the most ambitious storylines ever attempted to be put into the video game format, and as such, the scope and scale of this sci-fi world is pretty well unmatched. Fans of incredibly deep, cinematic stories will definitely find what they're looking for here. Just make sure you're a fan of cutscenes before you dive too far into this one. But alright, those are all fine, but they're all games you've heard of, and you're a man of discerning taste. You want me to pull some deep cuts, some real hidden gems. For you, my dear friend, I'm going to recommend R. Tonelico. Developer Gust put out 2 titles in this musically themed series on the PS2, and both of them are fantastic turn-based JRPGs with that iconic art style that Gust was so known for back then. Aside from the high-quality 2D artwork and the overt fan service, the thing that makes these games worth playing is the combat. Your RPG party is functionally bodyguards for a powerful sorceress that stands behind you, channeling incredibly powerful abilities, the least cool of which is functionally a spirit bomb from DBZ. If this sounds intriguing at all to you and you're not put off by the fan service and dating sim elements, definitely give this one a try. Y'all can let me know what you think of the deep cut hidden gems. I can make a whole list of those if you want me to, but we're gonna go back to a game that you've definitely heard of. To say Grand Theft Auto dominated the 6th generation and the 2000s would be a massive understatement. We got 3 incredible Grand Theft Auto games on the PlayStation 2. Grand Theft Auto 3's open world changed the franchise and all of gaming forever. Vice City's edition of motorcycles was a sick addition on those iconic Miami streets, and San Andreas is considered by most to be the best one on the console. We got 3 amazing Grand Theft Auto games on PS2. Crazy to think that we haven't seen a new GTA game since the Xbox 360 era. That was 13 years and 2 full console generations ago. We had it so good and we didn't even know it, man. We looked at Metal Gear Solid 3 in the graphically impressive games video, and I do think, at least from a technical perspective, it is the more impressive game. But being more technically impressive doesn't necessarily mean it looks better, and Metal Gear Solid 2 proves that. The art direction and aesthetic were absolutely on point in this game, and the gameplay holds up really well too. If you've yet to take a stroll through this complex narrative, do yourself a favor and check out what many consider to be the best game in the franchise. But enough of all these complex narratives, you don't care about that, you just want to jump in and have some fun. Well, say no more, my friend, because SSX 3 in particular, but honestly all the games in the franchise on the PS2 are a ton of fun. Over-the-top, arcadey, combo-based snowboarding action with special moves, the game really hit its stride and started to feel like the complete experience in SSX 3 specifically in my opinion, but Tricky is also good. If you want some fast-paced, arcadey sports gameplay, check these games out. You will not be disappointed. Sticking to the theme of turn your brain off fun, Burnout 3 Takedown is pure adrenaline-filled carnage, and it certainly does not require a lot of brain power. The various race modes and all the collision sequences that occur therein definitely get the blood pumping. But I think the iconic game mode that everybody remembers this series for is Crash Mode, where the only objective is to cause as much mayhem and damage in a single crash as humanly possible. And you'd be surprised how addictive it is to try and rack up a high score causing 40-car pileups with massive explosions. If you want a racing game with a destructive twist, this is definitely the one for you. We've really got our pick of the litter of an incredibly concentrated batch of excellent racing games on the PS2, but by far my favorite, I would say, is Need for Speed Underground 2. Yeah, the story's a little cheesy and the Fast and Furious vibes are pretty strong here, but I don't know, man, the neon-soaked streets and the extensive car customization, even the cheesy dialogue, it just really does it for me. And the gameplay just feels oh so good. It is just that classic arcade-feeling Need for Speed style, and just like so many other titles on this list, I feel like it was perfected here, never to be outdone in the future. So if you're into racing games or you have nostalgia for this one, it's definitely worth a revisit. For fans of survival horror, we got a few all-time greats during this era, but Resident Evil 4 stood out to me as one that really must be mentioned. Probably the best entry in the entire franchise. While the PS2 version of Resident Evil 4 isn't necessarily the best place to enjoy this title, it's still an absolute blast to go back and enjoy, and it looks so good on a CRT. I highly recommend you revisit this title on the PS2, at least for one run, just for the pure vibes alone. I don't know that any single title really showed off what the PS2 could do in terms of large-scale open environments and incredibly epic encounters better than Shadow of the Colossus. Ripping across the wide-open plains on your horse and scaling the various colossi in epic encounters is seared into the minds of so many people as one of the most epic experiences on the entire console. And while the frame rate does occasionally struggle to keep up with the action and the scale of the ambition in this game, it's still definitely worth a revisit. It's a ton of fun and a most impressive title. Alright, before we move on to my fairly surprising final entry on today's list, we gotta shout out Final Fantasy X. This game is absolutely in my top 3 on the entire console. This is easily one of the best RPGs on the entire system and one of the best looking games of the entire generation. But it's not just eye candy. The gameplay is a ton of fun, there's a lot of systems with a ton of depth to master. The characters are incredible, and the story cuts deep. It's unforgettable. Every RPG fan that wants to play PS2 should experience this gem. Last game on today's list I'm betting is one you are not expecting to see, and that's Madden 2003 of all games. Now this obviously isn't going to be for everyone, but these old Madden games on the PS2 were actually fantastic, and I think it had a lot to do with the fact that there was actual competition in this space at the time. Before the modern era of copy and paste sports games shit out annually by EA's Sweatshop Game Factory, these football games actually needed to be good to stand out. Not only that, but playing as all these future Hall of Famers and seeing all the familiar names is a lot of fun. The gameplay just feels great, and it's a ton of fun to revisit if you're into this sort of thing. Alright my friends, I'm frankly sick of editing, so that's all we're going to do for today, but I think this works better as a multi-part series anyway. If you'd like to see a part 2 to this series, let me know in the comments below and recommend me games that you think deserve to be on that list. And again, this is not a best of, curated PS2 list, but simply a bunch of games that I love to revisit on the console, and I was excited to talk about. Let me know which games are on your personal favorites list from the PS2 era. I'd really be interested to see it. If you did like this video, if you could like, hype, and subscribe, that does really help me out, but the best signal you can send to the algorithm is going and watching another one of my videos. Go check out that graphics video that I did just before this one if you haven't yet. That one was a lot of fun. As always, I appreciate those of you that made it to the end of the video, and thanks for stopping by.